Alrighty, guys. Welcome to the podcast. We haven't decided on a name yet, but we'll come up with it as we release this. Uh, and
Yeah, we'll have a name by next time.
so I'm Reed Q7, and here's my co-host. If you want to introduce yourself.
What's up? I'm George. I know Reed from local Utah Magic scene. Reed's in Colorado right now, but yeah, we met in Utah, and he was playing Titan when we first met. I was playing Tron, and then I eventually got converted to Titan.
And George is one of the best Titan players I know, though he never plays online or anything. Um,
Yeah, I need to get on Moto, guys. It's a problem.
a little about me. I started playing Titan about 2 years ago, watching some canister VODs. I've been streaming a lot recently. I top 8'd Showcase Challenge, and I've top 8'd 20 other challenges, including a couple wins since then. And I just love the deck. I love all combo decks. And I'm happy to be here discussing Titan with you guys. All right, so I thought we'd start this out by, we're streaming. Crap. Dang it. Okay, I think it'll save the recording. I think it'll.
Okay.
Oh, but the quality's gonna be bad. Oh, if we have to restart, that'll be sad. Maybe I start recording too.
I think it'll be okay to restart, but it'll be preferable not to.
Maybe I can just get this audio clip. We don't need to. The audio, it's not so important. All right. Well, we're streaming this. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, so I thought I'd start this out with some sort of headline matchups. The first and main one being the breakout deck of the weekend, or the last couple weekends,
of Modern,
which is Jeskai Blink. You want to start us off, George?
Yeah, dogs, monkeys, and sphinxes. This deck is pretty resilient. It has a lot of consign to memory, solitude, and some tricky sideboard cards. So there's a lot to discuss.
So, let's just pull up a deck list, and we'll sort of go through. Those listening audio only won't be able to see it, but we'll sort of go over the cards as we discuss them.
Yeah,
So
and
first,
if you all want to look at Jeskai lists, they're called Jeskai Generic Blink.
So Vinny Fino played this list. The creature suite here consists of 4 Ragavans, 3 Felias, 4 Phlages, and 4 Quantum Riddlers, and 4 Solitudes. So 19 creatures in total, and all of them are sort of value accruing style creatures. And that's sort of the main gist of the deck.
Solitude is pretty much just a removal spell that has the creature type. So yeah, there's some creatures that are trying to accrue value. Ragavan is an accelerator. We have Flage, which is a kind of a removal for small creatures and late game value. We only care about the arena kills with Flage for the most part.
And another piece of information that I was able to get over the weekend was actually that Phlages are getting highly cut in post-board games, so this is not really something we should be thinking about, worrying about, except for in game 1. As well as Teferis. Teferis are getting cut, and this Lightning Bolt. What they're bringing in is going to be 4 Obsidian Charmaws, 2 Subtleties, actually no Wrath of the Skies. They just leave the, apparently, according to the sideboard guide. Did they bring in
the Force or the Surgical? Wasn't it the Surgical that they bring in?
They bring in the Surgical and not the Force, interestingly enough.
Yeah, not the Force. So if they're playing the stock list, there won't be Force negation post board, and you shouldn't be that afraid of it.
So real quick, going back here and looking at our sideboard, we can sort of have some discussion about whether we're playing Dismember, and what that would look like, what sort of sideboard pieces have been strong, and what sort of sideboard options we have, how we're hedging for Charma, and moving on from there. So, George, how are you beating Charma?
Okay, Obsidian Charma plus Ephemerate is one of the easiest ways to get destroyed, just dumpstered by Jeskai Blink. Like it's not fun, and the easiest way to play around Charma, if you can, is to not play lands that add colorless on early turns. because that makes the Charmaw cheaper and they can get out really fast and disrupt our plan, blow up a bounce land or whatever is valuable to us from our non-basic land suite, and that's just really annoying.
So one thing we were discussing is our propensity to cut certain colorless lands out of our main board when we're bringing in lands. First thing I want to
Mm.
mention on this is you need to have lands in your sideboard to be able to bring in if you're cutting out a large number of lands. Um,
Because if you cut too many lands, then you won't draw enough lands. That's kind of how it works.
so here I was thinking of cutting sagas. I think that them not bringing in Wrath of those guys is really interesting and makes me want to sort of punish them by playing more sagas. But I think that's still incorrect. You get consigned as the saga's coming off. You get Sharmut as the saga's. You know, it's
Just sitting
easier
there.
for them. Though I will say I might leave some in on the play. I'm thinking of leaving in 2 on the play. I'm still sort of figuring out numbers. Um, I don't know. Are you cutting? How many sagas are you leaving in on the play?
On the play in this matchup, I think I'm leaving in 2 to 3 sagas.
Okay, and then on the draw.
On the draw, probably 3 out. It's nice to have one to search up with certain Titan and Scapeshift lines for value. So I think keeping one is pretty good.
Yeah, that's reasonable, especially since it can come to like beat down in the late game, sort of saga beat down.
Yeah, we dismember a few things if we're doing that plan and then we beat down, or we just have other beaters like a Titan with no amulet.
And then George is suggesting that we cut Urza's Cave, or he thinks Urza's Cave is not good in this matchup. And I hadn't
Yeah,
really thought
Urza's
about
Cave
it
is.
before, but I like
Mhm.
the idea. Yeah, if you want to just keep discussing.
Yeah, with Urza's Cave, it's a colorless land. It's not essential to any of our win lines like Echoing Deeps. Vesuva is another one, but that one won't be a colorless land a lot of the time, so it's fine to keep in.
So I want to sort of play devil's
Um,
advocate here. Are there lines? Are they so heavy on like subtlety, solitude that there are lines that Urza's Cave opens up, such as like analyst only lines from the graveyard that loop into a win? Like if we have an analyst in our graveyard already or something, does the cave maybe add to that?
well, Urza's Cave is always going to be really flexible, and I think I'm not sure about cutting this land because it's very powerful into some of the best interaction out of Jeskai. Like having the analyst lines that don't use the stack or care about creatures is very powerful. So that is the trade-off that you're making there.
Okay. So
You could
final
also argue
verdict, are you
that
leaving
like
it
the
in or are you
scape
cutting
shift.
it?
Okay, let's see. Um, I think that I'm gonna leave in the Urza's Cave, although it could be cuttable depending on your build. I think that's the verdict for me on that. The Urza's Cave is flexible, but there's also scape shifts that can help do that work with the analyst. If there's already like an analyst in the yard and they have subtlety, like scape shift doesn't get countered by that, and you can still do the stuff that doesn't get interacted with by subtlety and solitude. So I think that scape shift does that work. Cave could be cut, but I'm probably keeping it in.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've also decided on keeping it in. Though there's sort of these things to think about. Like if you are, if you have, reasonable colorless lands you can cut. And I'd sort of include Vesuva in this because a lot of the time you have like Vestige, Vesuva in your opener. You can cut those lands if you feel like you don't need them. Let's keep
Yeah,
on.
multiple early vestiges against that deck is not where you want to be post board because it makes Charmos so easy.
Yeah. Let's keep on keeping with Jeskai Blink. Because we got a fair chunk we wanted to get through. If we only get through part of this, then we'll just discuss more in a future episode.
Mm.
So there's no need to rush. But what have been really good like sideboard pieces? I've gotten some input on sideboard pieces for the Jeskai Blank matchup from different angles. This first input is from Al JCE or Alice. who plays as just
Shout out.
Alice on Moto.
Yeah,
And
Alice has been doing really well in recent events with stock up in the sideboard.
Thoughtseize. So a little wacky list,
And
but
Thoughtseize, yeah.
I like the concepts. Some of them are fun.
Yeah, Thoughtseize is not typical in Amulet sideboards, but it's a cool idea that we'll talk about a tiny bit.
So stock up is the suggestion from Alice. Alice is saying it's been really awesome. So far in my testing I've done multiple streams with stock up and I've resolved it like one time. I don't know why I see it so not often, but uh
Yeah, I've been
the
watching your
suggestion was
streams
stock up is
and
really
weird
good.
stuff happens.
Yeah. The suggestion was that
Yeah.
stock up is really good in this matchup and they've had lots of success with it. Have you been
Yeah, on
casting any
paper, it
stock
looks
ups?
really nice. Oh, what was that? Have I been casting some?
Yes.
I haven't really casted that many stock ups of Titan sideboard. I haven't played it a ton, so I'm not like an expert on the card.
All right.
But it looks on paper, it looks very good into grindy matchups like Jeskai Blink.
Then the verdict is out. We'll find out. However, I still explore in the matchup has been something that I've really been enjoying. I think there's only been a couple games recently where it's been super impactful because I just haven't been playing the card that much. But
Mhm.
I still recently has I don't know, just leaving in Green Suns in the matchup is super nice. And we'll get to the Green Suns sort of Dryad Arbor thing later. But leaving it in and being able to fetch up this ice still has won me multiple games because the main thing about Jeskai Blink is it is a value accrual matchup. Can Titan really outvalue accrue Jeskai Blink? Probably not. But a lot of the time, Jeskai Blink is, one card away. Like they have the last card in order to sort of put the nail in the coffin and win the game. But if you're able to generate a little bit of value so that you get past that last card and you're sort of able to come out the other side, you're able to win the matchup in a lot more situations. So I completely agree that stock up would be valuable given that case.
Yeah. Is Vexing Bobble good into Jeskai Blink?
I believe so because you're
Yeah,
stopping the
subtlety
two
is
subtlety and the four
that's pretty
solitude.
big. Yeah.
You could, give an argument the other way that, six targets isn't enough to be putting in two cards that sort of don't produce value on their own and are a little slower.
Yeah.
So hard to say. One thing I did want to
Also,
mention. Oh, go ahead.
okay, so in the Jeskai Blink matchup, what cards besides Solitude kill a Primeval Titan? I counted 0 cards. So yeah, that's another reason why Vexing Bobble is pretty nice.
Yeah. I've noticed though in this matchup, so we mentioned the Titan. I've noticed in the matchup, like resolving a Titan doesn't always win you there, or it wins you a lot less than it would in other matchups. Whereas casting Escape Shift or getting some sort of analyst line going has been extremely valuable. They don't have very good answers for it whatsoever. I guess I have
Yeah,
yet to
they're
be
weaker to the
subtletied,
line.
like sort of, slapped in the face subtletied, trying to go for Escape Shift line. I'm sure that's possible, but it's just been really strong in the matchup. Because the thing with Jeskai Blink is they sort of developed this board state where you're at like 4 life, they have like 4 creatures on the board, and you're gonna die if you just try and resolve a singular Titan. So the Escape Shift being this deterministic kill through anything type of line has been pretty valuable, more so than I thought it would be. We have a quick
Yeah, Escape
input.
Shift is a nice plan to victory.
We have a quick input in the chat that Mason Shadaro, who top 8 Pro Tour, would only want 1 bobble in a matchup. That's reasonable. That sort of goes along with the
That is
argument
reasonable.
of having the 2 bobbles. It sort of doesn't provide as much value. I think I'm going to stick with 2 for the moment, but I want to think about that more in the future while I'm testing. All right, I think we talked enough about Jeskai. Let's get into some hate pieces. Oh, you're so sexy. You don't cast Ashiok. How you feeling about that?
Yeah, if you haven't seen that meme, it's a pretty great description of how we feel about Ashiok. We do not want our opponents casting that card because it shuts down most of our plans. So Ashiok stops. It says your opponents cannot search their libraries,
Yeah, yeah, we
and
know what the
yeah,
card does.
well,
What how are you answering
yeah.
it?
So answering this card, you have to either beat it down, counter it, or destroy it with some sideboard card. And that's a really awkward card to play in an amulet sideboard, like a destroy target Ashiok. It's very narrow cards mostly, like Fry, Lithomantic Barrage, I believe, does it. Null Elemental Blast is very narrow too, pretty castable with our mana base. And Beast Within is another one that I'm somewhat of a fan of Beast Within. That one could kill Ashiok, but it's not great into the rest of like the mid-rangey decks that play Ashiok.
I've seen people splashing white for Celestial Purge as well. I think the two main
Yeah,
front runners
Celestial
recently
Purge.
have been Celestial Purge and Null Elemental Blast.
Yeah. We haven't seen as much Fry. That one's been tested a tiny bit, but Celestial Purge and Blast have been more popular.
So a lot of time with these answers to Ashiok, my main issue with them has been that let's take a look at like the deck that it's in. So currently I'm looking at an Azorius Blink list, and it's in plenty of other lists. But looking through this deck list, you just have so many creatures that are mono pip. Okay, maybe I'm pulling out of a let's look up Ashiok.
Ashiok Game Ender. That's its nickname.
That is how I sort of feel about it though. Is it's just sort of
Yeah,
okay, Affinity is playing it.
Yeah, Affinity loves jamming some Ashioks in their sideboard. A lot of Affinity players. I've had some local Affinity players that are going to be at RCs talking about how Ashiok, they're playing two in their sideboard because of Titan. It's going to be pretty popular as a one or two of in a lot of sideboards that can support it with their mana base.
So going back to thinking about Null Elemental Blast, which we could just focus on for a second, it's killing the Ashiok, and that's cool. But it's not like killing anything else out of this deck list. So you see the Ashiok, and you're sort of like, oh, I can Null Elemental Blast. So, oh, okay, I guess we want something with Frog. I think if we think about Null Elemental Blast in the context of there's Ashiok and there's Frog in my opponent's deck, we can sort of get somewhere.
Yeah, little Gorio's action.
Oh,
I've
that'll be
seen
good,
some
yeah.
Gorio's, yeah.
And then you can hit like Atraxa.
Is it in there?
Well, it's not in this deck list, but I've seen it in
Yeah,
various
but
Glorious deck lists.
let's imagine it's in this Gorio's sideboard. They have one or two Ashiok.
Do you think it's valuable enough if we're killing Frog, Resolved Atraxa, and Ashiok to
And
have a
also
Null Elemental Blast?
some Gorio's decks, like you'll bring it in because you think they have Ashiok. They might not even play Ashiok, so we're just bringing it in for Frog
I
and
guess it's
maybe a
like an
track.
open deck list question. If you have an open deck list,
Okay, yeah, open deck list. You know there's Ashiok.
I don't think it's worth it for the Null Elemental Blast. I think it's. I mean, okay,
I
other
think
people have had
no
success.
Blast.
I think there were a certain team of Australian players I think that I heard about that had some success playing it um at their event recently and really enjoyed it. Um, I guess there's a lot of hate, so it depends on how much hate you're seeing at the time. Um, but I think the thing with Null Elemental Blast is you only want to focus on is this are there enough decks with both Frog and Ashiok that I will be able to play this card? Because if you're focusing on stuff like Affinity, Azorius Blink, stuff like that that don't have other multicolored cards, you don't want to be playing the card. Oh,
Yeah,
notably also good against Zoo. More input for Mason.
very good against the multicolor deck. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Zoo is maybe playing an Ashiok in their board. Probably not. It's not the easiest to play in that deck. But yeah, we'll see it occasionally out of Zoo. And it kills Kavu and counters Plage, so it has plenty of game. Kills Leyline.
All right. Any other hate pieces you sort of want to think about before we keep moving on? Some of these decks are pure hate decks. We'll talk about Simic
Um,
midrange next.
yeah, there's like the Harbingers and Blood Moons of the world, but I think that y'all know a good amount about how
Yeah,
to deal with those cards.
trying to keep it, a little more high level. So
Yeah.
Simic mid range is something I've been facing a lot more recently. There's been a massive uptick. I don't know if anyone's been watching my VODs, but it's been, I would say, one or two in every league. And I don't know why there's so many, considering it sort of rolls over and dies to a lot of the aggro or mid range decks. Well, okay. Zeus sort of aggro, and it's beating Zeus somehow, so maybe it has some legs against Boros. I don't know. I haven't played the deck. Um,
Boros smokes it. I've played that matchup a few times.
so we could sort of touch on it and go over it, but it's sort of just a moot point losing matchup. Like, I've won the match one singular time, and it was memorable. It was so difficult to do
Yeah,
so.
it's one of those inside out core memories for Reed.
Exactly. Um, though we will give our advice on how to play against it here for a quick moment. I think the main thing I want to focus on, me personally, is watch out for endurance. It's just sort of a card I forget about that's in their deck. I forget they have endurance, and then I try and go for some sneaky graveyard thing that might be like shifting woodlanding a Titan that they countered, and I just lose given that scenario. The
Yeah,
ways
I was
that
watching Reed
go
play
ahead.
the other day, and yeah, shifting woodland tries to activate it, totally forgets about endurance possibility when we have another thing we could have done, and then it's just a disaster. So yeah, endurance can get you pretty good.
Yeah. Any particular cards or play patterns you've seen out of the deck you want to mention?
Flare of Denial is an important card to play around. Pretty much all of their low creatures are Coiling Oracles or the whatever the Ice Fang Coatl, so they're gonna have flare up quite a bit. Um, yeah, there's a lot of tough cards to deal with in this one. Sink into Stupor can really mess you up when you packed for something, and then the next turn you have to pay. Harbingers, they'll Birthing Ritual into those. They're quite problematic. They have more in their sideboard, I think.
Notably, there's only two force negation
Yeah,
in
not as
these
many force
decks,
negation.
so it's
Subtlety is
maybe something you can sort of
yeah.
play around.
There's a ton of subtleties as well. 3 average in the main deck according to Goldfish stats.
Mm-hmm. I'll also say the birthing ritual has been just a must remove really fast. This thing just it takes over the game so fast. I don't think I would go so far as to say you want to bring in, Force of Vigor, but having the fourth beside you is probably pretty reasonable against this card because
Yeah.
it is the actual out that they have to winning the game, aside from Harbinger, which
If Birthing Ritual is out for 2 turns, you're going to get Harbingered. If it's out for 1, you're probably going to get Abhorrent Oculist or Harbingered somewhere in there. So, yeah, it's very powerful and worth removing for sure.
all right, you being the Ruby expert, describe to us how we're supposed to win against Ruby and what sort of the key
Wha
cards interactions are.
So one of the best ways to beat Ruby is to let them beat themselves. Ruby is faster than us, and we don't have that many great ways to deal with any of their stuff pre-board. Beseiju on Ruby is one of the ways that you can get rid of their enabler and make them have to cast Ren's Resolves to search for a Ral or Ruby after you kill it. So that's one of the ways that you can win pre-board games. Use Beseiju something and then combo off, and like a few turns later, or cast a single Amulet Titan and get more Besejus for other stuff. It's a tough matchup though because Ral's definitely the best card against us because Odawara is not even a good answer to it if they like play that turn 2 and then we're on the play and play a Titan and Odawara it and then they just play Ral Ritual and go off. It does make it less likely that they'll win, but Ral's definitely tough. They have a faster goldfish than we do. They can win on turn 2 way more often than we can. And yeah, post board is where we get a little bit more of a chance against Storm. So Reed, what have you done post board against Ruby Storm to help make the matchup a little bit better?
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated. There's different levels of interaction that you can choose to perform, or levels of keeping our main board intact that you can do. Um, I mean, the deck's been rising in popularity ever so slightly since the Australian RC, since the one person that registered Ruby Storm won the entire RC, as opposed to the 20 Amulet pilots who the top result for the Amulet pilots was 20th place. And a lot of the others just sort of got destroyed over the weekend. And that might have been a
Yeah, it's a
result
pretty poor
of
event for Emulate.
the previous weekend's Titan dominance, that people just decided, oh, we're actually just gonna hate this deck out. Okay, but going back to Ruby Storm, House of Mana said this. He said the best way to play against Ruby Storm is just sort of don't respect it at all. Like don't give it any
Yeah, that's
credit. Don't
that's
think about
pretty
it too
good.
much when you're sideboarding. Hopefully they just sort of die. Your ability to stop them from killing you is pretty limited. So you could bring in the Dismembers, you can bring in your Beseiju, you could bring in a little gemstone to get it going a little faster. Some people will bring in a bauble. That's sort of pilot dependent. Some people will bring in Bog. I found that usually, no, I think Bog is good. Never mind. And
Fog is pretty good, since if you can slow them down, then they cast a few things and you exile them, it makes Past in Flames pretty bad sometimes.
but a lot of it is just going a bit faster and
Yeah.
hoping they fizzle. It's just a matchup where you just have to hope. Like
Mhm.
there's not much else to it.
Yeah, you gotta hope that they keep some risky hand where they don't have their Ral and they're trying to Rens resolve for it and cast it and don't find it. That happens sometimes. I've played a lot of Storm and I'll keep these weird hands. Like you have to keep them. They have a couple of lands. You get to surveil and play a Rens resolve looking for your medallion, and if you don't find it, you lose. If you find it, you win.
The main point I
That
want to
type of
make
thing.
here is these decks are becoming more popular. So they're just things to watch out for. Your meta is not your meta 2 weeks ago where these decks didn't exist. They're sort of coming out of the woodwork and it's a little more difficult.
Yeah, what
Um,
percentage of the time would you say that we beat Simic Ritual and Ruby Storm? Well, we have stats,
oh,
but
yeah, notable point
personally,
again from Mason is the cave for Bog held up at instant speed is pretty relevant here.
that is pretty dang good against Past and Flames.
So keep in your cave. Sorry,
Cave is
win
nice.
rate on both of these pretty dang low. I mean, Titan has no bad matchups, right? So Titan's my worst matchup,
Yeah,
but
it's like 51% and then
no,
50.5%. Just
that's
kidding.
we're
No,
we're
they're
looking
they're
at
pretty low.
we're looking at like Simic is between 70 and 80 somewhere. I'm not sure what it was. It's just absurd. You
Yeah.
need to be very lucky. I've been so this week I wanted to test the sort of construct plan against Simic. I'm like, all right, how do I hate out Simic? Oh, maybe the constructs will work. They just have a surprising amount of like, I don't know, flood maw, return to your hand, death touch creatures that just make it not feasible to hit them with the constructs enough and they die because they just have so many little creatures on the board that you're not really able to get them before they lock you out of the game. So I don't know. Morale will
Yeah.
be low
But-
until morale improves, I guess.
Yeah. And then Ruby hovers around 30 to 40% from tournament data, tournament to tournament. Some tournaments it's better or not. It's just luck.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into sort of some of the main board and the deck construction concepts that maybe have been making Titan win more. Uh, and let's start on Green Sun Zenith, which has seen a large resurgence in recent deck lists, heavily inspired by Pro Tour lists, the main one being Mason's list. Uh, I mean, yeah, how have you felt about playing Green Sun Zenith recently? Or have you played much of it?
I've been playing the heck out of Green Sun Zenith. This card is awesome.
So why do we think it's good
We
right now?
Yeah, what are the good targets for Green Sun Zenith and why is it awesome? So Green Sun Zenith, it can be an early grazer to block Ragavan and accelerate us a little bit. It can be a Titan when we have 7 mana, which with double amulet happens a decent amount. It can go and grab Aftermath Analyst to help us do some scape shift lines on 3 lands and whatnot. It can grab Ice Till Explorer in grindy matchups. And also Dryad Arbor is one that Reed has been pretty high on recently. You can grab that turn 1 and turn 2 a Spelunking, which is really strong. It also ups your grabbing the Arbor ups your land count for escape shift on following turns, so that's pretty cool.
So I'll get into the Dryad Arbor in a sec. I wanted to get into why I think Green Suns is good right now, and I think the main reason is we had sort of a streamlined build before with Explore, where it was like all you need to do is resolve one Titan, and the game's over, and that would work against most decks. And recently, there have just been more and more decks that can deal with one Titan, and that you sort of need the second, potentially third Titan slash analyst effect against. So it's less of a currently it's like less of a race and more of a consistency and recasting threats sort of meta. And that might just be because Solitude is so popular. But I think that's a big reason why all of a sudden Green Suns has been really good in this meta. Maybe it was always good, maybe we were wrong before, but it did feel like a faster meta earlier and one where you just needed to land something before your opponent killed you out of nowhere. Sort of the Neoform meta that existed before.
Yeah.
Belcher, that sort of meta. So, and then I'll get into why I like Dryad Arbor. I've just been playing it for the last, I don't know, 10, 15 leagues. And obviously it's bad to have in hand. Counterpoint, pretty easy to put on the bottom when you're mulliganing, and I always mulligan. 60% I mulligan, I feel like. Maybe that's too high of a number, but Green Suns,
Probably is right.
yeah, Green Suns for Dryad
Yeah,
Arbor,
we
it's just
mulligan
been,
often.
like, even if I don't have another threat in hand, I guess it depends on my hand, but I'll probably Green Suns for the Dryad Arbor just to get more lands out there, just to sort of speed it up. Makes your scape shift faster. Really helpful with Rumble. I can't describe it fully. I don't know how I can better describe it, but Green Suns into Dryad Arbor when you had 4 Explorers in your deck was a lot weaker than Green Suns into Dryad Arbor when you have Malevolent Rumble in your deck. And I think that's just sort of, I have no idea why. I can't describe it well, but the feeling is there that Rumble and Green Suns together with Dryad Arbor just works a lot better. And so I wanted to go over that and suggest that Dryad Arbor is a pretty good card to play. I know Nathan of the Guilt Leaf, whose deck list you guys should be looking at if you're playing the deck, has been doing really well with Dryad Arbor. But I think the most consistent online results putter upper is Nathan of the Guilt Leaf, and I would look into those lists pretty heavily.
Yeah, Nathan's been killing it with a lot of GSZs, 4 in some recent lists, and Dryad Arbor, so definitely something worth trying in your list.
Mm-hmm.
Also, why is Dryad Arbor like playable? Because it's pretty bad when it gets removed, right?
Go ahead.
Oh, Reed. So yeah, I'm just saying like recently people have Reed brought up that people haven't been playing as many like little removal spells in their decks. Boros isn't as popular. There is prowess with lava darts, but that's not like a huge percentage of the decks you'll play against. It's mostly solitudes and flages killing creatures nowadays. And using up a flage 3 mana to kill an arbor or a whole solitude evoked to kill an arbor is not profitable a lot of the time. So that's why arbor survives a lot of the time, and it's a pretty good thing to get right now.
I mean, like, Esper Blink's list shifting over to Jeskai Blink means people just aren't playing Fatal Push. They just have the one bolt in. So it just lives a lot of the time. So I actually have some interesting insight from other Titan players on this. I can't remember if it was Nathan or Pete that said this, but they said they're keeping in Dryad Arbor in every single matchup, period, I think. Unless they said minus Prowess. But I think they were keeping it in against Prowess too. which
Yeah,
is crazy
that
to me.
always does cut some lava darts against us sometimes. Maybe, but yeah,
So it's an interesting concept to go over. And the other thing that was said, again, I can't remember if it was Peter Nathan, was that, and this was inverted to what I thought. So fast matchups, they wanted the Dryad Arbor more than slow matchups because Dryad Arbor doesn't provide, I guess it was like additional, value or um, it's more of a fast matchup card in their view. In my view, I was thinking, well, I want Dryad Arbor in slow matchups, but recently I've been sideboarding more and more to where I've had it in the fast matchups and maybe out on the slow matchups because I'm trying to bring in these other cards, Ice Tail, Stock Up, Dismember, all this other stuff. That I cut the Dryad Arbor because it's not providing the additional value that something like Ice Tail, Stock Up, or Dismember would be adding, and I've actually been winning more games that way. So interesting concept. And the other point to bring up is like those slow matchups. You want a Green Suns for something that's not just a land. You want to save your Green Suns for a turn where you're putting down something valuable, such as Titan, Ice Till, or whatever mid range threats you're playing. All right, let's get on to some fast lands. Let's talk about Mycosynth first, actually. So what how have you been feeling about Mycosynth? Because I haven't been playing it, but I know you have.
yeah. I'm a pretty big fan of one Mycosynced Gardens. I think a lot of people don't play the card because it's kind of volatile to removal. You Stone Rain yourself to copy Amulet, and then they kill one of them, and you're in a really weird spot. And it can be insanely fast and get you some turn two kills as well. I like the Mycosynth when you go for a line later in the game, find the Mycosynth Gardens, and turn a single amulet into two in a spot to turn your one amulet titan into a mirror pooling double amulet titan. I think that's a pretty nice use of Mycosynth. It also filters mana for a few different cards, which is somewhat relevant.
That's a reasonable argument. I think though
Yeah,
that with Solitude being so popular in the meta, that maybe that line is a little less, I guess, valuable just in the current, heat of the meta with all the Solitudes everywhere.
yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of solitudes. It also works for like scape shift too.
yeah. Okay. Um,
Yeah, it's mostly for Titan in like non-solitude matchups. There's a few.
I haven't been missing it so much in my builds. One thing I will say is I think a lot of people count Mycosynth as sort of a splash land for whatever splash you're playing. And I want you to ask yourself when you're splashing those cards, how often have you really used the filtering ability on Mycosynth Gardens, where it hasn't been like much better to play something else that costs 1 mana more? Because for me, basically what I want to get across is maybe you shouldn't be thinking of Mycosynth as sort of a splash enabler as much as people are. It's like
Yeah,
for me, it's
it's
like
not a
point
mana
one point
confluence
one
type
five
thing.
of a splash enabler for me, rather than something like a bounce or a vestige.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that like Mycosynth helping casting a stock up is tapping 4 lands for that. That's just not very good. On the other hand, Mycosynth helping you cast a Mystical Dispute with 2 lands is really good. But Mystical Dispute isn't the greatest right now, so that would be another reason to like run Mycosynth that helps you support like one like sideboard cards that cost 1 or less mana of a different color, like Fire Magic or Mystical Dispute. I could definitely see myself cutting the Mycosynth Gardens at any moment. It's not essential. You don't need it to win at all. It has some uses that are really insane and I think are pretty nice, but it's not necessary by any means.
The other fast line I wanted to discuss, which is my baby, I love it so much. Gemstone Caverns. I If there's one card out of this deck list that just stands out to me as being the craziest addition recently, it's been Gemstone. And, so much as I want to gatekeep it, I also want to help other people. It's crazy, man. It's like it's won me, 4 separate matches. I don't know about won me, like maybe I could have won regardless. But it's definitely felt like I was gonna lose those matchups because I was a little slower. My deck's a little slower. The build's slow with like Green Suns and Malevolent Rumble. Slower than the Explorer heavy Mycosynth list used to be. Uh, and so being able to land that Gemstone Caverns early has just been awesome. Of course, you probably need to be keeping 6 or 7. You can't really keep the Gemstone on 5. Yeah, you just need to sort of have a consistent deck list that consistently is able to get green lands onto the battlefield early. But if you have that, Gemstone has just been such an awesome addition. Again, it's the same thing with sort of Dryad Arbor, where I didn't feel like it was working super well with Explore. But with this Rumble Green Suns being a little heavier, it's just been... It's able to get you that little boost of speed that you need to just have your deck list fall into place and run smoothly. So that's all
So
I
Reed,
wanted to cover on that.
are you bringing in Gemstone Caverns whenever you're on the draw?
Yeah, that's the concept. Doesn't really matter what the
Okay,
matchup
one
is.
one matchup where does Jeskai blink though? That one might be one where you don't want the Caverns.
I
Because if
disagree.
it isn't in your open
One of
hand and you
these, two
draw
of
it,
these matches actually were matchups where I felt like having the gemstone and being able to land it early were what won me the match. Otherwise, I just wouldn't have been able to accrue enough value early on enough that I was able to win.
okay.
Just because you're
Yeah, it's
used to having a deck list where you have like 1 or 2 cards in hand at the end of the game. Like you basically spam everything onto the field if they counter it, whatever. But this recent deck list with the Rumble and Zenith has just felt like you'll end the game with 3 to 4 cards in hand, and you have more value over the course of the game. And really, what's limiting you is your mana base, or the amount of mana that you're able to produce early in the game.
okay. I see that argument.
All right,
Okay, let's move on.
take us
We
away with
got
Explore and
Explore.
Rumble.
Oh my goodness, this is the war within the Amulet Discord. People get into fist fights over this. People send crazy messages at each other. This is the age old question ever since MH3 came out. Is Rumble better than Explore? Is Explore better than Rumble? So recently, people have been playing more Malevolent Rumble thanks to Pro Tour list showing that it upped the win rate and the card selection is really great. It gives you an Eldrazi spawn that helps you cast more stuff. It helps you find amulets and titans. Yeah, what's so great about this card?
So one thing I
I want
do
to focus more on Rumble because Explorer has been like the meta for so long in
One thing
this
I do
deck.
want to point out is Collins Mullen at RC Houston pulled out this 13-3-1 for 4th place with 4 explorers in the deck list. So that's really notable. I don't think that necessarily one
Mhm.
card is better than the other. And that's an opinion that I don't hold of any other, real slots in decks. Like there's generally always going to be a card that's better than the other. Anyone that's saying, oh, it's user preference, blah, 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 is suffering from copium. There's generally a better and higher win rate card in pretty much any card comparison that you can come across. But in this one, the Rumble versus Explore debate, they've maintained relatively even win rates. But what I've noticed is that Rumble has been a little more consistent for me. So I've been enjoying playing the Rumble, but I definitely don't think that there's a right answer here. So the reason I've been enjoying Rumble, it consistently gets you that +1 mana, which is often what you're looking for off of the Explore. The Explore, you want it to produce 1 extra mana for you, but there are just awkward situations, maybe like 15% of the time, or 20, honestly, where you just don't hit that extra land off of the Explorer. You don't find the land you were needing, and you just don't get anywhere with that. Whereas Rumble, it's pretty much always going to hit the land if you need it. It'll hit other value pieces. Again, with the Solitude is dominating the meta right now. Once you cast your first Titan, you want to be able to go find a second Titan, and that can be achieved with Rumble. I do want to note that this week, it was suggested by, again, Mason, that I copy the Malevolent Rumble with my Mirror Pool. I had enough mana to cast the Malevolent Rumble that I top decked, copy it with Mirror Pool, and still cast a Titan off of that under the circumstances I was under, which is something I was about to just cast the Rumble right away. I was like, oh, let's just go for it. And I didn't see it was difficult to see the Mirror Pool line, so that was really cool. Yeah, card selection, it's just been great. I was a Malevolent Rumble hater for a long time, or not hater, but I just didn't believe in this card at all. I was like, this is for people that don't trust their deck. They don't trust the Titan deck to win for them. But
Yeah, you gotta trust the explorers and the top of your deck to get you where you need to be. I remember me and Reed butted heads about Rumble versus Explorer a long time ago. It was a different meta and whatnot, but it was pretty funny. Like now we're both on the Rumble team, but yeah, Explorer was a long time played card for both of us.
so yeah, and another thing I want to note about this Collins Mullen list is this is actually just a canister list that Collins Mullen said that he like almost straight up copied. So canister is really good at making
Yeah.
Explorer lists, so I would follow along with whatever that is if you are trying to play Explorer lists. And I think part of that is playing this Cultivator Colossus. I think this is valuable in Explorer lists, and that this is just the extra sort of thread that you need to get across the finish line if you're playing Explorers. And the win rate of Titan just went up so much the second that people started playing Rumbles. I think that during the Explorer phase era, where it was really popular, right before the Pro Tour, our win rate was hovering like 51, 52% from results I was seeing. And again, stats don't mean everything. Things change. Don't read too deeply into it. But yeah, 51, 52%. And all of a sudden it jumps up to this like 56, 57% number as soon as people started playing for Malevolent Rumbles. So, obviously take it with a grain of salt, but look into it. Rumble has been really good. And I've been enjoying it a lot. Scape Shift.
Yeah. Let's see. Scape Shift. An absolutely amazing discovery that we didn't play for the longest time, even after Analyst was printed.
So Escape Shift, I
What
think
is
it was at its worst actually during the Pro Tour. I think there were just so many decks that sort of hated out Scape Shift that it was reasonable to play two. However, it sort of bounced back to the point where, especially against Jeskai Blink, which is just so heavily played, that you want to have 3 or 4 of them. I wish I could play 4. I can't find a slot in this 60 card deck where I'd want to play the 4th. And it's not something I want to draw, multiples of if I'm already struggling with other stuff, such as untappers and lands. But so I think 3 is a reasonable number for something that you want to top deck once, You just want to see it on the top of the deck and be like, oh, I win the game. And 3 is a good number for that. Yeah, I don't have much more to say on that. You got anything?
no, not 10.
What do you think are sort of the flex slots? Like,
What are the
what are
flex
your flex
slots?
slots? You don't need to look at my list necessarily. You could just be like, what in general are
My list is pretty similar to yours. Well,
things you could think about removing if you want to add your pet card, say like Cultivator Colossus, which isn't
yeah,
necessarily a pet card.
I wanna add my Cultivator Colossus. So a lot of people play 30 lands. You can take out maybe like the from this list, a Dryad Arbor. Urza's Cave is cut by some people. One of the forests. I like the 4 forest idea. I'm on 3 myself. I would play the fourth forest for Mycosynth. And you can also cut GSZs, a few of those. I would probably keep in at least 2 GSZ at the moment. You can go down to 2 Scape Shift depending on what your meta is. And then you can bring in Cultivator Colossus, the 4th Rumble, Second Analyst has been pretty popular recently. Yeah, there are just a few loose slots like the preference cards like Arbor and whatnot, like third scape shifts. You can trim around the edges on some of those cards to make room for your pet cards.
So for me, I'll sort of go over some of the cards I want to fit in. This is one of the rarer times in the deck building process that there have been a lot of cards I want to play and I just don't have enough slots. So I'll go over those cards. I want to play the 4th Green Sun Zenith. I really like Green Sun Zenith with Dryad Arbor, and it makes it so that when you draw multiples, it's not so awkward because you can just go get the Arbor and then you go get something else. If I weren't playing Arbor, I would never put 4 Green Suns in my deck. Drawing 2 would just be disastrous. Um, so I wouldn't mind having the 4th in here. And if I could find something to cut, I would. Scape Shift, and we'll get to the land count soon enough, but I'm not cutting any lands from my current number because I think it's the right number. Scape Shift, I already expressed interest in having the 4th just because I think it's so good in this exact current meta this week. I don't know that it's good in outside metas, but this week it's been really solid. Just as a I win the game button. But again, I think 3 is a reasonable number for something you just want to draw one of. Speaking of playing 3 just to draw one of them, Malevolent Rumble. I don't really like seeing 2 Malevolent Rumbles in my hands. I feel like those hands are just a little too awkward. They don't get to where you want to go, but it's just such a good top deck. It's so good to have one of in your opening hand that you want to see one over the course of the game. And so I think playing 3 is reasonable. But I wouldn't mind playing 4. And the numbers for Malevolent Rumble show that playing 4 has been perfectly fine for many other players. Pretty much everything else, let's see. Yeah, everything else is pretty stuck in there. So yeah, this is just my sort of considerations on some of the main board slots. And then we can sort of get into the importance of lands and what our lands are looking like. And I'll start on that actually. So I was playing the 30 land build because everyone was doing the 30 land build, and it was solid enough until it wasn't solid. And there would be leagues where I just didn't ever have a good opening 7 or 6, and that really made me frustrated. And this happened multiple times. So it wasn't just like the one time I'm like, oh, I have to mull twice. Now I'm going to change my whole deck and add more lands. It wasn't that. I think it genuinely is better to just play more lands. My perfect number is somewhere between 31 and 32 lands, I believe. Probably a little closer to 31. I think 31. If you are not like a huge land believer like me, I would play 31. So I can't Dryad Arbor as maybe half a land, so currently I have 31.5 lands in my deck list.
Which feels like the perfect number.
Yeah, for me, this main board has been so strong. I don't want to, because I know other people are able to get by with less lands. Nathan Agiltley, for example, gets by with 30 lands in every challenge and somehow wins them. So if you're able to get by with less, go on ahead. That is perfect. You're able to play either another Green Suns or Rumbles, something like that. But yeah, 31.5, perfect number. And the other point is that I want early green sources. I'm not playing 4/4s because I'm afraid of, White Orchid Phantom, Blood Moon, whatever. That's not the reason I'm playing 4. The reason I'm playing 4 is because there's not really another Greenland that I want to put in, and I just want more Greenlands. So, like, I was thinking about Castle Garenbrig. I was thinking about, I have a whole list, which is actually funny. Let's bring it up here. Let's see.
Let's check it out. I'm excited to see
Relevant
what you got on
Greenlands. And I rated them here.
here.
Lair of the Hydra, Tangled
Oh
Florahedra.
my.
These were like truly trash lands. I think Shifting Woodland is probably the best of those. Like if I wanted to play another Greenland,
Yeah.
it's either Shifting Woodland or Castle Garenbrig. I think those two are just going to be really strong. But yeah, if you want the full list of cards I looked up on Scryfall, Tranquil Thicket, Lair of the Hydra, Tangled Florahedron, Turntimber Symbiosis, Xenarkand, and Hashep Oasis. So There's a little fun for you if you want to have some
There
Scryfall
you
fun.
go.
Um, yeah. Anything more on green sources for you?
Um, nah, they're important. We have four vestige, the forests, and Besagus as early untapped green sources, and they're very important. Casting Grazer turn 1 into turn 2 Spelunking is really important to have the lands for that, because sometimes you can't do it if you don't have the right lands, and it leads to a slower game, which is not good.
Yep. Nice. Let's move on to bullets. Go on ahead. Green
The
bullets.
bullets. Oh, like bullets that we're searching up with
Yeah, green sun's
the green.
targets. Yeah.
Yeah, green suns. Yeah, yeah. Um, so
And
we
I'll
want to start with main board or
um
sideboard. Probably sideboard because people know what you grab main
no,
board.
yeah, we already discussed main board, so we could go to side.
Yeah, yeah. So sideboard and grindy matchups, Ice Till and Six have been really favored recently by like many lists. We've seen we've seen Six quite a bit. That one does good work recasting stuff. Ice Till is a value machine into really grindy matchups. We found it to be pretty good against Jeskai Blink, good into Azorius Control,
What
and
bullets do you dislike? What do you think people play in, high profile lists that you're just like,
over
I
yeah,
hate this card?
some overrated cards.
Sure, yeah.
Um a card that I'm not the biggest fan of is Elvish Reclaimer. I think that one it has some really good uses, but it's not my cup of tea. It's not what I'm wanting to do with a sideboard GSZ slot.
So let's go on opposite
It,
sides here for this argument. You go on the full I dislike Reclaimer, and I'll go on the full I like Reclaimer. Even though we both
yeah,
have pretty moderate
I
takes here.
hate. Yeah, yeah. I think it's okay. It's almost playable
Why do you hate it?
for me. Yeah. Why do I hate Reclaimer? Reclaimer is it's tough to know what matchups to bring it in against. It doesn't have haste or anything and do anything right when it comes down. And
I think
what
Wrath of the
else?
Skies is another argument there. If they bring in
Yeah,
Wrath
it
and they
gets
sweep it
swept
up.
up by Wrath and those grindy white matchups. That isn't very fun when you spend a whole card to do that in 2 mana.
All right, I'll be on the
Um,
positive team. So I like. Let's think about before Jeskai Blink, and then I'll go into Jeskai Blink. I like that it grabs Bog. That seems useful. It can grab like Saga in sort of a grindy board state, so where you can like grab the Saga, make a construct, that sort of thing. It can grab Lotus or Bounce Land depending on what you need to try and get into a Titan, and it costs 1 mana, which is just crazy. Green Suns for 1. It's just a thing you get to play so often, especially if you're playing 3 Green Suns. But yeah, I just have to agree with you. I don't know when to sideboard it in or what to cut for it. It feels like Dryad Arbor almost, in the sense that like it generates value, but at a really slow pace. Like it whereas like Ice still generates value for you right away. You're automatically like, oh, I get to play an extra land. Next turn I get to play two extra lands, which are basically card draws. It's just insanely fast. Versus Reclaimer, you have to be extremely patient with, and I am not the most patient Titan player. I like to go for things quickly, jam into potential interaction. Okay, but I'm on the side of Elvish Reclaimer. And okay, going into Jeskai Blink, I really like the concept that they can attempt to Charmaw you, and you with your face up Reclaimer get to sack that land and bring back another land. I bring up the face up part because maybe they won't go for the ephemerate Charma plan if they know you're just going to sack the land. But there is that option of they try to Charma you and you just sort of sack that land to go grab another one. So that's sort of something that's been recently attracting me to the card and having me thinking about playing it.
yeah, the Jeskai Blink matchup is That's a good reason to play a Reclaimer if you're playing against a ton of Jeskai Blink, which a lot of people are right now. So
But then at the same time,
it's
Jeskai Blink, they're
maybe
like, "Oh, I'm gonna
yeah,
Wrath of the Skies you." You're like, okay.
yeah, and then it feels really bad. So it's still iffy in that matchup,
Or you
but
have a
a
Feli on the board, and
Sharma
they're like,
interaction is pretty decent.
you have a Reclaimer on the board, and they're like, "Oh, I'm actually gonna Feli a Flicker Riddler and draw like 3 cards," and you're like, "Oh, I have a Reclaimer," you know.
Mm.
I
It's
think
maybe a yeah.
I think
You
Reclaimer
can grab a
shines
Saga.
at its very best against Azorius Narset control. That was the best time to play it
Yes.
because you got the correct value you needed. It stayed on the board most likely. They didn't really want to remove it with their super heavy creature removal. Um, it potentially dealt with Narset because you could go grab like bounce land for your Otawara or Otawara for your bounce trigger or whatever. Um,
Or just have enough lands in your yard that's a 3/4 beater.
yeah, worked as a construct. Like I think that was the best time for Reclaimer was that matchup. And the Jeskai Blink matchup plays out differently than the Azorius Control because Jeskai Blink is trying to win on like turn 8, right? You know, they're a little slower, but they're still just accruing value the whole way. They have a bunch of creatures on the board when they finally kill you. Versus Azorius Control was trying to kill you on turn like 12, 13, like really far down the road. And you were sort of able to take advantage of those extra turns more by having the Reclaimer on the field. So that's my thoughts there.
Yeah, Reclaimer has some versatility. Not me and Reed's favorite card to play in our boards, but you can play it.
Another point I want to bring up is I'm almost thinking about cutting Collector Oof soon, just because literally the only thing it's useful against is Belcher, and it's really nice against Belcher. We are playing 3 Green Suns, so it's okay to have one slot out of the 15, but if we're seeing like none of it or the win rate's just really low, I don't mind cutting it if I need to fit something else in my board. I haven't yet gotten to the point where I need to fit something else, but this card, one matchup card, 4% of the meta. I don't know. It's nice to have as a bullet, but
We went from 2 oof and a ton of Belcher opponents to 1 oof and just not very many Belcher opponents. So yeah,
yeah.
maybe we'll be out of the board sometime. I don't think so because it's so good into Belcher and you will play against it sometime. But yeah, it's less relevant than it used to be. There's also affinity matchup, but I don't like it that much into affinity anyways. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not the best.
Okay. I think we're good on the well, hold on. I want to talk
After
about
the
let's talk about these two things right here. The two alternate additions to the main board. So I forgot to mention two things that I wanted to add to the main board as I was discussing earlier. And those were firstly, second analyst, which would be pretty cool in the main board. It's really nice to go Green Suns for sort of a value piece that can accrue you value and you don't have to worry about it dying. I think people overstate the issues with it dying. But if your opponent has a Solitude deck, it is a card you need to have in. It's just a card you need to be able to recur. So it works really well against Solitude decks to have the second one. Um, and I was playing a second one in the main board for a little while. Then I sort of relegated it to the sideboard, thinking, oh, I don't really like my Green Suns targets so much. Like, I would prefer to go get an Analyst over the Ice Till. What I failed to recognize was that Aftermath Analyst is a 6 mana card, and Ice Till is a 4 mana card that instantly produces value. So this has to stick around for a turn to be useful, which is difficult and often can be interacted with, especially when your opponent has Graveyard Hate. But I did have the second one in for a while, and I did really enjoy it. Secondly, the other card still playing around Solitude is Cultivator Colossus. Being able to scape shift. You go ahead, George.
Okay, Cultivator Colossus. Reed hasn't played this one historically too much. I've played this one a lot. It has some really nice uses playing around Graveyard Hate and stuff that would stop Escape Shift. You can use your Escape Shift to grab a bunch of bounces and put them in with Cultivator. Cultivator, yeah, it's good into Solitude. It's another big threat. It's good against the Stone Brain from Tron decks because they'll Stone Brain your Titans, and you still have a big threat that can beat them down and put in a bunch of lands, pick up some Besagers, and do some damage there. Online, it's yeah, if your Titans get taken out, then you can copy Cultivator during the Analyst loop to make it so you don't have to copy Analyst 20 times, which takes like all your clock. Um, yeah, Cultivator very weak into consigned to memory. It stops the entire like half, probably let's see, probably 80% of what the card is good for. It's still a big body a lot of the time, but if they can counter that trigger, then you just spent a lot of mana to do nothing. So that's not very good. It gets sideboarded out quite a bit, but the card has some real strong matchups.
I agree that it would be a main board card, if anything. Like, it would never be a sideboard card for me.
Yeah, I've had it in my sideboard before, but I'm like, why is this in my sideboard when it's good in some matchups pre-board? Like, it didn't make sense. So it'll be a main card if you play it main.
Historically, I have not liked Cultivator Colossus because my argument was always consigned to memory. However, this week I was watching a Canister stream, and Canister states so your opponent is likely going to consign your Saga trigger early, your Amulet early, your Titan triggers. Once you have that Colossus, you probably already got consigned one or two times during the game, or your opponent has no more consigns left in their hand, as long
That was a
as, I
good
guess,
point.
they didn't Riddler multiple times. So the odds of you actually getting consigned off of the Colossus trigger is pretty low. Like, I feel like it's 20% of what it would be against like a Saga Amulet early type thing. So that was something that got me thinking, okay, what would be the value of playing this card in my deck? I was also listening to the Gab Nassif podcast. It's like midweek metagame or whatever, and they were talking about Titan a little bit and sort of some of the iterations. I think they were talking about Collins Mullins' list, and they were discussing Cultivator Colossus and how it's just really strong against Solitude at the moment. Like, that your opponent Solitudes you, thinking like, all right, this is my last card, this is what I got, I'm pitching another card for this, and all of a sudden you're able to accrue all of this value with the Cultivator Colossus, and they just can't interact with that at all. So it's been another consideration of a card I want to put in my deck list. In my current list, I'm running 3 Green Sun Zenith and a Dryad Arbor, along with lots of lands. I'm trying to pretty much keep everything in this deck. I really like the way it's constructed right now. So adding a Cultivator Colossus in there would sort of add like the 4th 7-drop to my deck, and I don't really like that. Um, I'd probably have to cut a Green Suns for it, is the most realistic
Yeah,
cut. I can't really
I
cut
think if
anything
you
else.
played Cultivator in that list, you'd probably cut like a Green Suns and Arbor, and then
Yeah,
like Cultivator and maybe Fourth Rumble or another land.
yeah, I would easily be cutting, Green Suns Arbor. So, all right. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Cultivator Colossus. Let's end the podcast on Elish Norn real quick. Uh, Shoot, go on ahead.
Okay, Elish Norn in the sideboard. People went crazy for this when Ketramos Black White became really popular after during and after the Underworld Breach ban. So Elish Norn, it's a mirror breaker for Amulet Titan. It's extremely good into blink matchups. It has some real nice uses, and it's a white card, so you do have to splash for it. It gets casted by Vestige, Lotus Field, and you'll play Selesnya Sanctuary if you're playing Elishnorn in the board. People got really hyped about this card, tested it a lot, and then we found that just it was pretty awkward, but it's worth thinking about to put in your sideboard depending on what people are playing a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, focusing on non-Green Suns targets, because Green Suns targets can cost a little bit more mana. They're just nice because you have 4 of them, like um in the board basically, because you have all these Green Suns. So like I have 4 Ice Tills because I have all these Green Suns. So you can sort of put little more expensive cards here. for value. But everything else in this board, Vexing Bauble, Force of Vigor, Dismember, the lands, these all cost 1 or 0 mana. And that is the secret to what makes a strong sideboard card. And I'll explain why, is because it's not necessarily the splash that's causing Elesh Norn to be a little more awkward. It's the fact that when you bring in a sideboard card, you are, let's say, like 70, 75% likely to cast it if it costs 1 mana. You know, you have it in your hand, you drew it, you're like, all right, this is pretty good. It'll provide a little bit of value on this board. I'm 70 to 75% likely to cast it. Versus if you have a 5 mana card, a lot of your lines are just going to be they're going to sort of wrap around it. You know, there will be lines where you randomly have 6 mana and you have like a Pact or a Titan in hand. And you're like, well, I'd rather just cast the Titan, to this. Or I would rather cast the Elesh Norn, but it's not that much of a difference in win rate between casting this and casting the Titan. Like maybe Elesh Norn gives me 20% equity. Okay, sure, you got 20% equity on your win rate, but you could have just not brought it in and probably won anyway. So just the fact that it's expensive, you now, instead of being 70 to 75% likely to cast it, you are 30 to 35% likely, and that makes the card half the value of what a cheap sideboard card would be to you. So that's my main argument against Elesh Norn. Now I want to sort of go into like why we would like Elesh Norn, why it's seeing play at the moment. Obviously Jeskai Blink. I mean, you just shut down Jeskai Blink. It's insane. Unless they have March for your Elesh Norn, or they have Felia Blink, do
Reed,
some
didn't
things
we
that
have
win the game.
We had a hilarious league game where Reed had 2 Elesh Norns in his board for testing. He cast one.
I had
I
3 of
think
them.
it gets, yeah. Oh, you had 3. That's right. Yeah, and all 3 of them get killed by like 2 marches, and then I think was it strategic betrayal or something?
So
It
yeah,
was just these ridiculous cards killing it. But in most of the time in the Blink matchups, they won't have those.
it was ridiculous. I got it like Path to Exiled,
Yeah, it
marched.
was Path,
I cast it
March, and
4
then
I don't know how I cast
yeah,
it 4 times, but I saw 3 of them and I somehow cast 4 and they all
yeah.
died, and it was ridiculous, and it made me believe less in the card. Though in the current, Jeskai Blink stock list, they are pretty good. I will say they're pretty good. They're pretty good in the mirror. They might be useful against the Simic mid-range decks. So if those have a big uptick, as well as Jeskai Blink and Titan, you might want to consider playing them. I personally see it as a 35% card as opposed to other 75% cards I could put in, but you might want to consider playing some number of Elesh Norns. I think they're honestly reasonable. I've been thinking about them. I don't like the aspect of a card costing too much.
Yeah, personally, I think it's a little bit of a trap. You could play it. It can be very powerful. That's definitely a thing. It can kill your amulet mirror opponents and shut down Jeskai Blink. It can also just be a dead card sometimes. Yeah,
All right.
that's Elish Norn for you.
Well, I hope you guys like the podcast. We'll be wrapping it up here. If we want to think of a quick name, let's riff a couple. Titan Lens. I don't know.
The Titan Lens.
Fish
Greed.
Greed? Oh, Greed. Hilarious. I love it.
Greed. Yeah,
Uh
it's Greed. You
Titan
spell it
Greed.
G.
Titan Greed is pretty good. Or like Amulet Greed.
Titanic Greed.
Like
Titanic Greed.
Titanic Greed. That's a good name.
I kind of like that one. Yeah.
All right, let's
I don't
run
know.
with it.
We'll keep brainstorming. Titanic Greed for now.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and we'll be releasing more if you guys like this content. Just make sure to, drop a comment or something, or say somewhere that you liked it, and we'll be sure to get out some more content.
Yeah, it's fun making this for you guys. We love Amulet Titan, and we're excited to make some more episodes later.
Alrighty. Peace.